A little bit of background. The Lagos worked hard on their farm, with Luigi clearing and planting cane and Maddalena helping as much as she could when she was not working in the house. With the outbreak of World War II, Italy had aligned itself with Hitler's Germany, thus putting the Italians living in Australia under suspicion. The Italian men in our area were told to have a bag packed and ready to go with the police if their name was on the list of people to be interned. Now, maybe because of Luigi's previous war record, he was arrested and spent the first few days in Tully jail. Maddalena and the children would walk into town from the Mission Beach Road farm to visit every day. Luigi was then transferred by train to Stewart Creek Prison in Townsville. The train had bars on the carriage windows with guards and guns. Luigi and Maddalena did not know if they would ever see each other again. The government commandeered the interned farmers' tractors, cars and guns. It was indeed a frightening time for the internees, as they didn't know what was to become of them. Some thought they might even be taken out to sea and shot. In April of 1942, Luigi was sent to Cowra in New South Wales. The food wasn't very good, so the Italians started growing their own vegetables to eat and had a still hidden under the floorboards to make grappa, which for those you don't know is like brandy. They shared the vegetables and grappa with the guards and were regarded as non-threatening and allowed to work outside the internment camp. In 1943, the first Japanese prisoners of war were brought to Cowra, and all were then kept under strict conditions. By the end of that year, Luigi was transferred to South Australia to work on the pine. Many of our early immigrants came from far away, leaving their loved ones behind as they forged a living until they could all be reunited. Sometimes this was years and years later. They came to this country to start a new life, but sometimes this country was not as kind to them. This was evident during World War II when over 5,000 Italian men were rounded up and put into internment camps. Our story here is of Luigi and Maddalena Lago. Now, Luigi was the eldest of 6 children who was born in Italy in 1894. He fought in the First World War, holding the rank of Sergeant Major in the Italian Army. When he left the army at the end of the war, he returned home, but work was hard to find as Italy was entering into a depression. He then decided to go to Germany, where he took whatever work was available. A few years later, he returned to Italy, where he met and married Maddalena in 1923. A year later, with a young wife and a new boy Valentino to support, Luigi still could not find steady employment. So Luigi decided to go to Australia to find work, leaving Maddalena and the baby behind. Luigi worked hard in the cane fields of far north Queensland. He spent 2 months in Innisfail before going to Silkwood, where he worked for 4.5 years with a German gang and then an Italian gang. He saved all his money and was able to lease a farm of his own on the Mission Beach Road, which he would later purchase. After being separated for over 5 years, the Lago family were finally all united when Maddalena and young Valentino arrived in Tully by the end of 1930. 3 years later, their family was complete with the birth of twins Alex and Nancy. Nancy, who some of you might know as Nancy Marsilio. Maddalena did the planning and organised the harvesting. She would remove weeds from the paddock with a chipping hoe, as well as laying the cane rails so that the cane trucks could be loaded by cane cutters. There was also household chores of cooking and sewing and maintaining the vegetable garden. Clothes back then were washed by hands as there was no electricity. While Maddalena was doing this, Valentino was still in internment camps where he was involved in an accident which put him in hospital for several months. This resulted in his leg being in plaster for 2 years. Imagine that, 2 whole years. Now, during this time, while Maddalena was working on the farm, many of the Tully farmers thought it would be too hard for all the internees' wives to manage the farms, so they waited to buy them up at a reduced rate. But Maddalena was determined to overcome the many challenges they faced. Luigi was released from internment in 1944. They sold the Mission Beach Road farm and moved to another cane farm on Stamp Road at Uramo. Luigi now would sponsor migrants and help them to settle and assimilate into the community. He would help new Italians to the area, fill out the forms and secure jobs. Years went by and life continued for the Lagos. Now I'm sure many of you here are looking forward to going fishing tomorrow. Luigi did indeed like fishing, but unfortunately on the 15th of June in 1961, when Luigi was fishing in the Tully River with some friends, tragedy occurred when Adriano Borsalada stood up and caused the boat to flip, which struck Luigi on the head. Adriano was trapped in the nets and unfortunately both men drowned, but Luigi's body was washed out to sea and wasn't found until the next day. He was 67 when he died. The two men are buried here beside each other, so when Maddalena died 10 years later at the age of 70, the family had to get special permission for her to be buried with Luigi. For so many years, Luigi and Maddalena spent their life apart. Isn't it fitting that at least they get to spend the rest of eternity together? Yes. Thank you very much.
That was Nancy.